Imagine lying on your back in a meadow at twilight, watching the first stars appear. That's how it began when Uranus, the sky himself, first stretched across the world. But this wasn't just any sky you've ever seen. This was the sky as a living being, vast beyond imagination, his star-studded body arcing over everything like a great celestial blanket. Gaia had been waiting so long for this moment. From her depths, her very essence, she called forth Uranus to be her equal, her partner in creation. And oh, what a sight it must have been when he first appeared. The darkness that had ruled since the beginning suddenly blazed with silver starlight. Where there had been only earth below and emptiness above, now there was perfect balance. Earth and sky, ground and heavens, the solid and the infinite, finally united. For the first time since creation began, the world felt complete. Gaia's mountains reached upward toward her new companion, while Uranus bent down to embrace her valleys and plains. The very air between them hummed with possibility. This wasn't just two beings finding each other. This was the universe learning how to love. And from that cosmic embrace, life as we know it truly began. Their first children were unlike anything that had come before. These weren't the simple elemental forces of the earliest days. These were the Titans, 12 mighty beings who would shape the very foundations of existence. Each one born with powers that could reshape mountains, redirect rivers, and command the very essence of time itself. Oceanus emerged first, his vast form becoming every ocean, every sea, every drop of water that would ever flow. Tethys followed, becoming the mother of all rivers and springs. Then came Hyperion, blazing with the light that would one day become the sun, and Thea, shimmering with the silver glow of future moonlight. One by one they came into being. Koios, master of the northern winds and heavenly knowledge. Phoebe, radiant with prophetic wisdom. Krios, stern and powerful, commanding the southern constellations. Iapetus, who would father some of the most important figures in all mythology. And then there was Rhea, gentle but strong, destined to become the mother of gods. Themis, the living embodiment of divine law and justice. Mnemosyne, who would hold all memory and knowledge within her vast mind. But perhaps most significant of all was Kronos. Even as a newborn Titan, there was something different about him. Something in his eyes that spoke of ambition, of a hunger that went deeper than his siblings. He was time itself, made flesh, the force that would one day devour everything, including his own children. The world had never seen such magnificent beings. Each Titan was a force of nature given form and consciousness. They were beautiful beyond description, terrible in their power, and completely innocent of the darkness that was already beginning to grow in their father's heart. Because, you see, something strange happens when infinite power meets the fear of losing it. And Uranus, master of all the heavens, was beginning to feel that fear. At first, everything seemed perfect. The sky and earth worked together, creating wonders beyond imagination. But as their children grew stronger, more magnificent, more powerful, Uranus began to worry. What if these Titans, his own offspring, decided they no longer needed him? What if they chose to rule in his place? The thought consumed him like poison spreading through starlight. Slowly, horribly, Uranus began to change. The loving partner who had once embraced Gaia with tenderness became controlling, possessive, cruel. Love turned to obsession. Protection became imprisonment. One by one, as each new Titan was born, Uranus would seize them and force them back into Gaia's depths. Imagine the horror of it. These magnificent beings, barely having drawn their first breath, suddenly trapped in the darkness of their mother's womb, unable to see the light of the world they were meant to inherit. Oceanus, who should have been flowing freely across the Earth's surface, instead found himself compressed and confined. Hyperion's brilliant light was snuffed out, trapped where it could never shine. All 12 Titans pressed together in the cramped darkness, their divine forms twisted with pain and confusion. The cruelty didn't stop there. After the Titans came 3 more children, even more powerful and terrifying. The Cyclopes, each with a single enormous eye that blazed with the fire of lightning itself. One could forge thunder, another could shape the very storms, and the third could create weapons that could destroy mountains with a single blow. Uranus looked at these mighty sons and felt his fear multiply tenfold. Without hesitation, he seized them too and hurled them not just back into Gaia, but down into the deepest, darkest part of existence, into Tartarus itself, that prison of shadows where the very air was made of despair. And still, his paranoia grew worse. The final children born to this increasingly twisted union were the Hecatonchires, the Hundred-Handed Ones. Imagine beings with 50 heads each, 100 arms apiece, strength that could move continents and voices that could shatter stone. They were awesome in the truest sense of the word, terrifying and magnificent, and completely loyal to their parents. But Uranus saw only threats. Into Tartarus they went as well, joining their Cyclops brothers in that realm of eternal punishment and darkness. Can you picture Gaia's agony? Every child she brought forth was immediately torn away from her. Every moment of joy in creation was followed by the devastating loss of seeing her offspring disappear into darkness. Her body became a prison for the Titans, cramped and painful as they grew larger and more powerful with each passing age. Her heart broke again and again as she watched the Cyclopes and Hecatonchires vanish into Tartarus. The earth herself began to suffer. Mountains trembled with her sorrow. Earthquakes split the ground as her rage built deeper and deeper inside her. The very stones wept with her pain, and flowers wilted wherever her tears fell. But perhaps worst of all was seeing what Uranus had become. The loving companion she had called forth from her own essence had transformed into a tyrant, a monster who ruled through fear and cruelty. The sky that had once been her greatest joy now felt like a suffocating weight pressing down on everything she loved. For ages beyond counting, Gaia endured this torment. She felt her Titan children stirring restlessly within her, growing stronger, growing angrier, growing desperate for freedom. She heard the distant cries of the Cyclopes and Hecatonchires echoing up from Tartarus, calling for their mother, begging for release. And slowly, inevitably, her grief began to transform into something far more dangerous: determination. Deep within her earthly depths, Gaia began to plan. She whispered to her imprisoned children, telling them stories of the world above, of sunlight and starlight, and the freedom that was rightfully theirs. She spoke to them of their father's cruelty, of the injustice that kept them trapped while Uranus ruled supreme and unchallenged. But most importantly, she spoke to one child in particular, one Titan whose power over time itself might be the key to everything. She called to Kronos, her youngest son, and in the darkness of her womb, she began to reveal a terrible secret. There was a way to end Uranus's reign of terror. There was a way to free the Titans, to rescue the Cyclopes and Hecatonchires, to restore balance to creation, but it would require courage beyond measure and a willingness to commit an act so shocking, so final, that the very universe would never be the same. She had a plan, and she had the perfect weapon to carry it out. As we sit here by the fire, with the stars twinkling peacefully overhead, it's hard to imagine the cosmic drama unfolding in those ancient days. But somewhere in the darkness of Gaia's depths, young Kronos was listening to his mother's whispered words, and his heart was filling with a cold, determined fury that would soon reshape everything. The age of Uranus was coming to an end, though the Sky King didn't know it yet. The first great overthrow in the history of the cosmos was about to begin, and when it happened, the blood spilled would create new life forms that would haunt the world forever.